I didn't realize at first that I was being edited out. When my mother started her blog, it felt harmless. She posted photos of breakfasts arranged like magazine spreads, wrote long captions about patience and presence, about how children needed consistency, warmth, structure. People responded, comments multiplied, then followers. I was still living at home then, finishing my last year of school. Sometimes I'd see her drafts open on the kitchen laptop, sentences about sleepless nights, about comforting a crying child. They weren't lies. They just weren't about me. At first, I assumed she was protecting my privacy. I was older, more private, less photogenic in the way brands liked. It seemed reasonable, but then my younger siblings appeared. Carefully framed, faces turned toward soft light. Their names softened into nicknames, their struggles turned into lessons, their lives turned into content. I wasn't in the background. I wasn't cropped out, I simply wasn't there. The first time I noticed it clearly was during a post about raising 3 children with intention. I read it twice, slowly, like I was missing something obvious. 3 children, 2 names, a vague reference to earlier years that felt like it belonged to someone else. I didn't say anything. Silence can feel like maturity when you're trying to convince yourself something doesn't hurt. Years passed like that. Her following grew. 500,000 eventually. Partnerships, a book deal in discussion. Interviews where she spoke about building trust with her audience by being honest about the full experience of motherhood. I watched those interviews sometimes, not out of curiosity, more like checking the weather, something ambient, unavoidable. She had a way of speaking that made everything sound intentional, even omission. We didn't fight. That would have required acknowledgement. Instead, we developed a careful politeness, birthdays, brief calls, occasional messages that felt more like updates than conversations. I moved out, built a life that didn't intersect with hers unless necessary. It was easier that way. Then came the announcement, a feature interview, a reporter from a well-known outlet. The angle was clear. Authenticity in parenting, behind the scenes of the perfect mom. A full family profile. I read it twice. Then a third time, she had agreed to let them into her home, to photograph daily life, to show the reality behind the image. For a moment, I wondered if this was it, if I would finally be included, not as a correction, but as part of the truth. But when the preview photos were released, it was the same frame, the same 4 people, the same soft light, no mention, no hint. That was when something shifted, not anger. That would have been easier. It was more like a quiet recalibration, a realization that absence repeated enough times becomes a statement. I didn't decide to go immediately. For a few days, I carried the thought around, turning it over. What would it change? Would it matter? Would it just confirm what I already knew? I opened old boxes instead. Photos I hadn't looked at in years. School events, birthdays, ordinary afternoons. My mother in all of them, tired, distracted, sometimes smiling in ways that didn't match the captions she would later write about those years. There was one photo I kept coming back to. Not because it was dramatic, because it wasn't. We were in the kitchen. I was maybe 12. She was at the counter, looking at her phone, half turned away. I was standing behind her, holding something, maybe a drawing, maybe a report card. My face was expectant. Hers was elsewhere. No conflict. No crisis, just a moment that didn't fit the narrative she had built. I put it in a folder with the others. The day of the interview, I didn't announce myself. I didn't call ahead, I just went. Her house looked exactly like it did online. Clean, curated, light falling in the right places. Through the window, I could see movement, people adjusting, preparing. When I knocked, there was a pause before the door opened. She looked at me the way you look at something familiar in an unexpected context. Recognition without readiness. Oh, she said. No name. Behind her, I could see the reporter. A camera. My siblings sitting on the couch, quieter than usual. I was in the area, I said. It wasn't true, but it wasn't entirely false either. I had been circling this moment for days. She hesitated, then stepped aside. I walked in. No one stopped me. That was the first shift. Not dramatic. Just a slight misalignment in the flow of things. The reporter introduced herself, polite but alert. I could see the calculation in her expression, an unexpected variable. And you are? She asked. I could have answered a lot of ways. I'm her daughter, I said. Not eldest. Not forgotten. Just daughter. The room held that for a second longer than it should have. My mother smiled, a practiced reflex. Of course, she said quickly. This is. But she didn't finish the sentence. Maybe she realized there wasn't a version of me that fit neatly into the script. I didn't sit down. I didn't raise my voice. I just placed the folder on the table. I brought some photos, I said, in case you wanted the full story. No accusation. No explanation. The reporter glanced at my mother, then back at me. Permission, or lack of it, hung in the space between them. My mother didn't say no. That was enough. The reporter opened the folder carefully, like it might contain something fragile. She flipped through the first few images, school plays, birthdays, Me clearly present in a life that had been edited to exclude me. Nothing dramatic happened at first. Just a gradual tightening in the room, a shift in posture, in breath. Then she reached the kitchen photo. She paused, looked at it longer than the others. Then she looked up. "This is from when?" she asked. I answered, my voice steady, even to me. My mother didn't speak. It wasn't the kind of image that causes a scene. There was no obvious wrongdoing, no headline in it. But it didn't match the story. And that was enough. The agent, who had been standing near the doorway, mostly silent until then, stepped forward. "I think we need to pause," he said. Not loud, not angry, just definitive. He didn't look at me. He looked at my mother. "We'll regroup," he added. "This isn't aligned with the current positioning." Positioning, the word hung there, clinical and precise. The reporter closed the folder slowly, not dismissive, not sympathetic, just attentive. Something had shifted, not explosively, irreversibly. I didn't stay long after that. There was nothing left to present. No speech that would improve what had already been understood. As I left, my mother didn't follow me. She didn't call my name. But she looked at me, really looked, for the first time in years. It wasn't recognition, not fully, but it wasn't absence either. Outside, the air felt different, not lighter, just clearer. I didn't check what happened next. The contracts, the posts, the explanations, if there were any. It wasn't my responsibility to manage her story anymore. For the first time, I wasn't waiting to be included in it. I had already stepped out.